Story 1. A few years ago, my dad's truck was broken into, and he lost all of his rings. He had several silver rings and would take them off to drive because the wheel rubbing on the rings was irritating. He forgot them in the truck one day, and they were all stolen. My dad is not the type to accept gifts, especially if it's a replacement for something that was lost due to his own error. Over the years, I've been slowly replacing them. I'll save up, buy a ring that looks similar to one of the old ones, and then I'll either claim I found it somewhere or leave it for him to find. I replaced two by pretending I found them in the snow while out shoveling. Months later, I left one outside our front door for him to find. It makes him so happy every time one is found. I hope he never finds out I am the one leaving them. Story 2. I am jealous of the friendships my friends have with each other. I have never felt as close to them as they do with each other. And as a 40-year-old man, I would feel childish admitting this. I just feel like an outsider sometimes and wish I had the same kind of bond they do. Story 3. I ran in a high school track meet once using a tampon. The entire tampon, plastic tube and all. I was so confused about how these were in popular use because wow, what a hassle it was trying to keep that little extendable plastic stick from falling out. Why did people like using these things? Edit. I have deep regret about the word choice of pain in the rear in this post. Story 4. My life expectancy is less than a year. My friends and family think I am antisocial, but actually, I spend most of my time in bed. I do not want to tell anyone, and I do not know why. Thank you to those who responded. Some gave me some things to think about. Story 5. The contrast of these responses goes from the most traumatic thing I've ever heard of to the comment underneath saying they defecated on themselves once 27 years ago. Story 6. Just about every day, when I am in the car headed to work, I genuinely contemplate just driving off and leaving everything behind. My fantasy is heading all the way to Alaska, living in a motel room, and washing dishes for work. I can't go through with it because I have people counting on me. Yes, I am in therapy. I got a message from a bot that a concerned Redditor was reaching out. I don't know who you are, but I appreciate you. I can assure you that I do not wish to harm myself. Just experiencing the call of the void. Thank you, though. You are a good person. Story 7. I think about suicide a lot. I don't have any desire to do it these days, but it's constantly in the back of my mind. I wouldn't ever admit to it offline anymore, since people have tried to get me involuntarily committed for it, even though I've stated that I'm not actively suicidal. Story 8. Back when we were dating, my wife found out I had never had a surprise birthday party before. She really wanted to throw one for me, which I was okay with. Only one problem: it never worked. She'd try almost every year, throwing surprise parties for other occasions. Each time, as she was planning stuff, I'd pick up on some discrepancy in her cover story, or pick up on something that a friend said, ask about it, and she'd be unable to cover it. Then finally, after years and years of this, she pulled it off. She was delighted and so proud that she at last managed to surprise me. She's talked about it for years, about how close I came to uncovering it. It made her so happy, and it was a lot of fun. Except what actually happened is I finally managed to be quick enough putting the pieces together to stop myself before I asked about the discrepancy in her cover story. Played dumb, pretended I had no idea, acted surprised when the day came. She will never know. Story 9. I work in a front-facing role where I interact with customers, subcontractors, and clients for 12 hours a day. I'm chatty, full of energy, and I get on with everyone. But outside of work, I have no friends. The one friend I had has moved away, and we speak very rarely anymore. Story 10. I read a lot. I wake up as early as 4 to 4:30 a.m. so I can read, or even stay up super late. Not just because I like it a lot, but because it keeps me from thinking intrusive thoughts ever since my mother died 5 years ago from cancer. The feeling of going into another world, if only for a moment, makes me feel secure. Not sure if that is healthy, but it is better than any antidepressant I was given that made me feel like a different person. Story 11. I once sat in a sauna at the gym contemplating what to do in life. It was one of those moments where the road ahead was unclear. A man walked in who was over 30 years older than me and sat down. Just the two of us were there. I felt a strong urge to ask him for his advice, what his regrets in life were, if he were in his 20s again, what he would do differently, and so on. But my social anxiety and general fear of men kept me quiet. I've always regretted it. I think sometimes life puts opportunities in our path to learn and grow, and missing any of them due to something like social anxiety is such a waste. Story 12. The last time I defecated myself, I was 14 and walking home from the bus. I didn't even feel it coming. It was just explosive diarrhea. To make it worse, both my parents got home early, and my dad's boss was over for a visit. Nobody outside of the four of us knows. Edit. It's kind of funny that my comment about the phantom explosive diarrhea is my top comment ever. Story 13. I have the desire to just pack my bags and leave. Start over somewhere where nobody knows me and expects something from me, and create a life for myself. I feel guilty, though, because I feel like I won't miss my family or my friends. That's the secret eating me up. I'm 18, and nothing is holding me back from doing so, just the fear. Just so you know, it's not like I'm leaving my kids and husband behind. It's just the fear of the unknown and knowing that if I do this, my parents will not expect anything of me anymore, and I'm afraid of that. Story 14. Sometimes I get up in the morning, shower, get ready, and then get back into bed and pretend to be sleeping just so my daughter can run into our room and wake me up. She's 7 and still loves waking me up in the morning to get my day started by seeing her face first. I pray that I will never know a day that doesn't start like this. Story 15. I had a best friend that would humiliate me in front of groups of friends. One night he decided to do it in front of the guy I had just started dating, sharing really embarrassing personal stories and wouldn't stop. Everyone was laughing. I went into the bathroom and scrubbed the toilet with his toothbrush. I have never told a soul about that. Story 16. I've been secretly trying to make my daughter's first word mama, because I know it will make my wife unimaginably happy. She's doing well with the coaching, so I think I've got a shot. Story 17. My mother died in childbirth. I was the child. There was a photo my dad kept on the mantle. He has my sister hoisted up on his shoulders, looking out of breath and nervous. He set the timer on the camera and wasn't sure of the settings. My mother is standing next to him with his arm around her, and she's looking up at them and laughing. She looks young, happy, and very pregnant. When I was about 7, I destroyed it. He turned the house upside down looking for it. Eventually, he thought it was stolen for the silver frame, toured the pawn shops, and banned my sister and me from having visitors. Story 18. I have told a few people, but it's limited. I am a child sexual abuse victim, and my abuser made national news twice for the video she took of us boys, not the physical abuse. Police didn't investigate properly, and when I went to make a report 30 years after the abuse, the police officer at reception was a hostile, rude, aggressive man. I walked out actually crying. That officer quit his job 2 weeks into his investigation. But that officer literally broke my soul. I don't feel strong enough to open up about my abuse and how hard it's been being let down by police at every step. Story 19. When I was training for a marathon, I was out for a run and suddenly had issues with my gastrointestinal system. I ran behind a bush on someone's lawn and experienced perhaps the largest bowel movement of my lifetime. It was early morning and nobody saw me. I had to run home with an uncomfortable mess and the worst sweat of my life. I threw out my shorts and shirt and took a shower. Story 20. My fiancée loves to sing around the house, but only when I'm not there or can't hear. She has the most beautiful voice and incredible vocal ability. My secret? When I have my headphones on around the house, she'll sometimes call out to me, and I'll pretend I can't hear her at all. She'll often start singing, and I turn my headphones off so I can hear her properly. It's been 4 years, and she still doesn't know that I purposely ignore her so I can listen to her singing. Story 21. When I am emotionally overwhelmed, I tell myself that no matter how bad it gets, I can always end my life. That soothes me, knowing I do not have to take that option, but it is always there. Story 22. That I was assaulted by my stepfather a couple of times when I was 7 to 10 years old. Not even my best friend knows about this. I've kept this for so long, I'll be turning 25 this year. I think I've made the right choice as my brother looks up to his dad as a role model. This is the first time I'm sharing this. I'll be keeping this secret until the day I die. Not even my future husband would know about this. Story 23. My dad bought me an expensive, hideous piece of jewelry when I had each of my babies. I pawned them but tell him they were in a box that was stolen out of my storage unit. I felt guilty about it until I remind myself he kicked me out a couple of months after turning 18. Came home to all my things in the driveway and all the locks changed. And I'm an only child. He's lucky I even speak to him still. Story 24. I hired a prostitute once. No sex was had or wanted. She was surprised. I just wanted someone to talk to freely. Therapists in my area never called me back, so I got mad and got it done that way. She had an easy night. She was actually a cool person once the dust settled and we figured it out. My male friends would be disappointed I didn't sleep with her, and my female friends would be revolted. Forget all of them, I'm going to be me. Story 25. I've been plus size my whole life, and losing weight has become my whole life. All I think about is which food I should eat and which I shouldn't. I have to think for hours before eating something, and I'm really tired of this, but I have no self-control. The moment I'm out with friends or family, I can't stop myself. Story 26. My mother collects decorative elephants. I write adult content for a living. I will never tell her that the Christmas present she got from me one year, the pride of her collection, was the result of me publishing a particularly explicit story that sold a lot better than I was expecting. I definitely won't tell her that I have been mentally referring to it as the bucketchiderm this whole time. Story 27. I was groomed and raped over the course of 6 months when I was 15 or 16. He was a friend of a family member, and he even took my virginity. He also took the very little self-esteem and stamina I had and left me with nothing inside of me, just my physical shell. I still regret ever getting in contact with him because I could have avoided so much. But I was a 15-year-old who thought attention from a 23-year-old would be right and good. Sometimes I still think it was my own fault because I agreed to meet up. He messed me up so bad. It's been 6 years and I still have trouble saying no to sex when I don't feel like it. And I can sense the other person really wants it because I am afraid people are going to step over my no and just take what they want. Story 28. I've tried to harm myself several times before. I have letters hidden everywhere for my husband, my kids, my mom, and my siblings. I started taking Zoloft because of it. I developed a panic disorder about 3 years ago, and no one would take me seriously when I tried to talk about it, other than my husband. I started Zoloft for my anxiety, but in reality, I started it so I would stay alive for my husband and my children. It's been 4 months now, and in the past 2 weeks, I've actually felt happy, feeling excited about living instead of the opposite. Story 29. I'm on a diet and I really miss comfort eating. Sometimes when I get desperately hungry, I'll chew food, then spit it out into a napkin, and then throw it in the bin in private obviously. Story 30. This is horrible and I can't believe I'm going to say it. My mom's longtime boyfriend was a raging alcoholic who was extremely verbally abusive. He made me fix his drinks from the time I was 15 to 30, and every single chance I got, I spit in it. Also, on 2 separate occasions when he brought up my deceased dad, who committed suicide saying horrible things about him, I poured out half his whiskey and replaced it with my urine, and he drank every drop. No one knows except my husband, who helped me hold the bottle so I wouldn't spill my urine everywhere. Story 31. I don't like the name we picked for our daughter. It's a classic name that works well where we live and with her brother's name. I don't hate it by all means, but I would have wanted a different name. I couldn't bring myself to tell my partner because it is his favorite name of all time, and he agreed to my favorite name for our son. I am about to give birth, and at times, I think I have not delivered already because I am not ready to accept her name. Edit. I probably should delete the comment, as it's not a secret anymore. I sat down with my partner and told him that I don't really like the name we chose for our daughter. We had a long talk about it. He had similar feelings with our son and didn't say anything as he knew it was my favorite name. But he also said the name really grew on him, so no regrets there. We agreed on waiting until she is here and seeing how I feel about her being called by that name. If I really can't accept it, we will look into different options and use that name as a middle name. We agreed on a different one for family reasons, but it isn't that important to us. Honestly, just talking to him about my doubts is making me feel a lot better. Ironically, I now have the feeling the name will grow on me. Pregnancy hormones are wild, and all the good stories about names growing on people really helped as well. Thanks for everyone's advice. Story 32. I'm in love with my best friend. I told her 2 years ago that I wanted to take her on an actual date, and she told me she just wanted to be friends. After that, it was a couple of weeks of her not really talking to me, and then unfortunately, she had an accident. The accident resulted in problems partially impacting both long and short-term memory. I didn't ask if she remembered our conversation, and we more or less went back to the way things were, other than her telling me the same adorable stories over and over again, multiple times a week.